Hello everyone, and welcome to another recommended reading. I feel like I'm gonna yawn already because I'm getting nice and relaxed to film. So in today's episode, I guess, of recommended reading, I have selected a number of books that I think are great for when you're sort of feeling uneasy in life, in yourself, anyone who's dealing with stress and anxiety, which, I mean, these things probably pertain to like 99% of us, so I think these books are good for pretty much everyone, but in case you're wondering what the sort of theme or angle is, that's kind of how I would structure these together. I also wanted to mention that a couple of the books I'm going to be talking about I don't have a physical copy of with me, so I will put a picture somewhere on the screen of whichever titles I'm missing at the time that I'm speaking about them. So, okay, let's just jump right in, I guess. I'm going to leave the kind of biggest one for last because I know I'm going to have the most to say about it. I do have both dogs here with me. I'm actually going to take your little name tag off because it rattles around so much. Okay. Frida and Cuddy are in here with me, so I'm hoping that they will behave. But yeah, okay. So I guess the first one that we can talk about is this book right here called The Power of Small. This book I actually initially did rent from the library, however, Frida got a hold of it. This was the really only resurrectable page. This book is a whole new copy that I purchased, and I tried to give it to the library in lieu of the one that I lost, but that's not how that works apparently. So always check with your library before spending money on a brand new book. They wouldn't take it. They just made me pay the fine. I don't understand that completely, but it is what it is. So, yeah. Obviously, she did a really great job of destroying the library copy. So, anyhow, now I have my own copy, and I guess that's fine. So, this book, as it says, is co-authored by two women, Linda Kaplan Thaler and Robin Koval, and the two of them have been kind of the brains behind a lot of very famous marketing campaigns in America. So even though you may have never heard of them, you've certainly heard or seen some of their works, and in essence this book is kind of puffing up, or that's not really the right way to say it, but it's attempting to make the reader appreciate the significance of the small things in life. The subtitle is Why Little Things Make All the Difference, and they have this really creepy ant right here. I absolutely hate ants, but I overlooked that to read this. So they kind of discuss a number of different moments that occurred in their lives and others, friends and acquaintances, these moments that changed the course of things in a grand way, but they were such small moments. And the reason why I purchased this in the first place, well, rented it, was because I was feeling really insecure about the small talk that I still have to make with my clients. It's very uncomfortable for me as an Aspie, and I know that that's already an aversion that people of all sorts have anyway. I'm definitely one of those people who hates just like, how is the weather outside, and just saying those kind of really corny universal things that you can say to a practical stranger to keep things kind of comfortable. I'm not a huge fan, so I wanted to kind of encourage myself to just do it anyway and see kind of how it goes. And I needed a little bit of extra confidence, I guess. I had rented this book, this was months and months ago. I've almost been in business now for a year, which is crazy. So this was probably 10 or so months ago that I rented and read this, and I don't know that it 100% completed what I was hoping for. There are some like speech coaches in my area, but they're pretty expensive, and it's kind of hard to practice small talk without another person, especially someone who you're not comfortable with. So it's been a day-by-day thing, but on the plus side, I did get a lot of surprising, unexpected kind of benefits out of this. So the chapters are: number 1, the power of small; number 2, small truths; number 3, make small talk, which seeing that chapter title is part of why I picked this book up. Number 4 is go the extra inch. Chapter 5 is take baby steps. 6, watch your cues and clues. Chapter 7, little mistakes spell disaster. Chapter 8 is make it big by thinking small. And chapter 9 is small changes the world. Even if you're not struggling with small talk, I think this is a great book just for encouraging folks to open up to community and to the small moments that, it's one of those things that is such a cliche that we really take it for granted in a sense. That's also not the right way to say that, but when you hear something over and over again, like, you just never know what's gonna happen, it's always that one chance moment or whatever that will influence the rest of your life. People say things like that all the time, and it kind of makes it lose its meaning in a way, or people feel comfortable saying that about a lot of things, and in a sense it's always true. Every decision that we make is a ripple into the future, and every decision made by our ancestors before us affects our own, how we came to be. So in that sense, yes, every small little moment does matter. But this is more about like things that you can kind of really see the ultimate effect of, and I've been on a huge kind of kick lately about needing to kind of reinstate the value of community in our society, and how I think that that is like the biggest piece of the puzzle that's missing. As much as we don't want to deal with people and don't want to talk to people, don't want to, we guard ourselves from strangers all the time, rather than connecting over the fact that we're just humans. There's so much ugliness and judgment that leads us to that place, but I think it's so counterintuitive to what our bodies are and our brains and our emotions are wired for. I just think that this is a nice little reminder and help towards being more open in a way. So that's the first one. The second one that I will talk about is one I don't have a copy of. I'll try to kind of alternate a little bit. So this one is Think Like a Breadwinner. Oh man, I'm gonna forget her name. I want to say it was Erin. Let me double check, because I want to make sure I get this right. And it's going to be on the screen, so you're going to know if I mess it up. Okay, Jennifer Barrett. I was confusing her with this girl. I think her name's Erin Lowry. She's another kind of internet personal finance person. But Think Like a Breadwinner is the name of this book, and the subtitle is A Wealth Building Manifesto for Women Who Want to Earn More and Worry Less. First of all, just for anyone who might not know me that well, I am not huge into the whole idea of like, let's segregate everyone, female power at the expense of men or whomever. I do think that being a woman and having your femininity in a way is a specific characteristic. This is so hard to verbalize. Obviously, we've established the fact that not all women need to be feminine in the traditional sense, but there is an inherent quality of womanhood that does exist, and whether we want to face it or not, unfortunately, the gender differentials, binary ones, have played a large role in how our culture and our societies across the globe have developed. And I know that the reason why I'm kind of going on about this is because there's another book I'm going to talk about. Maybe I'll talk about it next, just to kind of stay in this sphere and get it all through at once. But I think this book is mainly geared towards women. I don't think that men would get nothing out of it. I do think that it could be helpful for men in order to understand the other side a little bit more. But there's also information in here that's just like good personal finance and investing information. So if you have not learned about any of that in your life, this book is going to have useful information regardless. But all of this to kind of say that this book is from the angle of being a woman and combining that with the thought of being a breadwinner, since traditionally it's been like the man is the one who makes more money and some of you probably already know these kind of stats and statistics. Those are the same thing. Stats and facts, figures. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but the fact that it's very common for women to like secede their career in order to raise the family, and there are a lot of like really weird statistics such as the fact that when like a married male-female couple has usually married, has a baby, the man will often earn more money than previously, but the woman will earn less or will not be considered for the same sort of like raise, or I guess it's just very built in for people to think, well, the man is probably the breadwinner of the family, so we need to give them more money to support their new family. But if it's just a woman, a single woman, or even a married woman, but she's the main earner in the family, maybe he's a stay-at-home dad or a part-time worker, it's far less likely that the woman will be approved for for like an equivalent pay bump. I hope I'm making sense of this, but there are just weird things like that that are very common. It's also very common for women nowadays to quit working under the sort of pretense that all of the money that they would earn would go to childcare anyhow, so why bother continue to work? Like, why not just go raise your child if the money's gonna be almost entirely eaten up by childcare, not really taking into account the fact that having a gap in your work history means that you're far less likely to be able to come in to a position after you rear your children. And this might not sound like a big deal if you're thinking, oh well, the partner is the breadwinner anyway, what does it matter? They don't need to get that kind of a job. But people get divorced and life changes, people lose their jobs, like it is important that people in general, regardless of gender identification or otherwise, have equal opportunities in the workplace when it comes to providing for themselves and or family. So Think Like a Breadwinner is a book that I heard about on a podcast I was listening to called So Money with Farnoosh Torabi. I haven't really discussed this much. I actually filmed an entire hour and a half long ASMR video about finance because I've gotten huge into the personal finance sphere. I watch personal finance videos on YouTube every day. And this book was recommended, and I think that Jennifer was a guest on the show in the episode I listened to, and she mentioned obviously this book that she had written, and it sounded good. So in the book, all kinds of great concepts are discussed that help to set you up for financial success, and also that alter your maybe preconceived notions, or just the things that have been passed down to you as ideas of well, this is how the woman is, this is how life is if you're a woman, and you don't have these opportunities if you're a woman, that sort of thing. It really challenges a lot of those, and I just like the combination of education and go get 'em kind of rhetoric and it really suited me because I didn't feel like it was bashing anyone who's not born woman or identify as woman. Like, it's just a good, hearty book that helps you go for your dreams. And this was another one that I had rented from the library ages ago when I was probably around the same time I rented The Power of Small, actually. So that was more, I guess, about like female roles than the actual book itself, but there's not a whole lot to really cliff notes about that book. It's just, if you have any desire to be rich, if you want to make money, if you want to be independent, and you also happen to be female, it's a great book for you. I highly, highly recommend it, and it's a huge, huge what's the word I'm kind of looking for? It's just like Jennifer is like advocating for you, and if you don't have anyone in your life that's doing that for you, especially from the angle of understanding the restrictions that you might have simply because of your gender, then it's really just a great resource. Speaking of, this is the other book that I wanted to discuss. It's called Own Your Glow, A Soulful Guide to Luminous Living and Crowning the Queen Within by Latham Thomas, who is a doula. She's like a master doula, which is one of those people who helps you give birth, not in a hospital. That's her there. She is leagues beyond me when it comes to embracing being a woman, I guess. I don't know. I don't know that I would recommend this book to any guys unless you're like curious as to the female angle, I guess. Yeah, it's really kind of hippie-ish in a way. It's okay, so in order to frame this book, let me just say quickly that I did not grow up embracing being a girl. It always meant negative things, like I wasn't allowed to wear what I wanted, I wasn't allowed to do certain things, I was treated differently for being a girl, and I resented that, and I didn't want to participate in feminine things after a while. I guess probably starting around middle school, and there was that clear divide in the social hierarchy, and I just felt like I didn't fit with the pretty stereotype, I guess. I just really started rejecting it, and it has really only been within the last maybe year, 2 years, that I've started to allow myself to be like, pink's kind of cool and dresses are really comfortable, especially in the summer. Yeah, so I've long kind of suppressed any femininity inside me. I have little bits now, of like more stereotypical femininity, but I don't look at being a woman as like a sacred thing, and this bitch does, let me tell you. I mean, like, I've never felt more like, wow, I'm pretty cool just for existing than reading this book. It's so confidence giving, and it really, like, she speaks about women like they are here. Let me just read this title page. Owning your glow is the art of being a fully expressed woman. Owning your glow evokes a discussion of divine and sassy femininity. Owning your glow is a catalyst, accelerating positive change from the inside out. Owning your glow is discovering beauty, sensuality, vulnerability, and creativity as portals for authentic self-expression. Owning your glow is about embodying love and standing in your purpose. And most recently, I'm about halfway through. Most recently, I first of all learned every different part of the wombiverse, as she calls it. All of the different parts that make up your lady bits. A lot of anatomy. I did not know that the word vagina originates from the Latin word meaning sheath, which is like a sheath to a man's sword. And I didn't know that the word cunt comes from a Greek goddess of fertility, which is Kunthis or Kunti. I don't know if you're really supposed to say that, Kunti, but it's Kunti. I don't know. Anyway, there's a lot of shit in here that I'm just like, whoa. That's weird and cool and something I never would have thought about. And again, I'm not trying to say that like women are better than men, but I do think that you can appreciate everyone at the same time. I think that no matter who you are, how you identify, or who you are, really in any regard, who you love, whatever, it's important as a human being to appreciate your existence. Not that we need to think of ourselves as, you know, like God figures, but just, you know, you want to be happy to be alive, and this book definitely gives you the tools to appreciate being a woman, and it really makes you consider the idea that women are like the givers of life and just the integral role that we play in our society, and it's just really cool. So yeah, this book has given me a lot of just like confidence for being alive. It made me feel better about my, you know, natural self, if that makes sense. Okay, for a complete change of pace, I also recently finished this book, which has been in my, it's not a pocketbook, it's a backpack, but whatever, my backpack that I carry around as a purse for months, so it's kind of beaten up, but this was just a good, wholesome book, and if you want to just feel alive and with a respect for the world in a way, and like just society, community, I definitely recommend this book. It's called My Antonia by Willa Cather. It is, Willa Cather was one of the first people to write about like prairie life. I believe she wrote in like the late 1800s, early 1900s. This book was first published in 1918, and I know that she had a few others before this one. So yeah, I think that time frame is about right. And the book largely takes place in Nebraska. I think that's right. And it's so interesting. She writes from the perspective of a man named Jim Burden, and I actually think she does a really good job of writing from such a different perspective. And it's kind of almost a weird love story about this girl named her name's Antonia, not my Antonia, but they grow up together, and it's kind of more of like she brings life to his world, and she just really impresses energy upon him, life upon him. He never kind of forgets her, and it's not like an actual love story. They don't end up together or anything. And really, the book is told in the past tense, as a reflection, I guess. It's not really written in the past tense. But I think at the beginning of the book, if I remember right, one of Jim Burden's friends is talking with him and kind of asks him for his memories of Antonia. And in response, he writes this book, essentially. So like a book within the book. And it's just kind of talking through these different adventures, and they are lovely. They're very well written. It's really cool to read the plains imagery, especially because even though I live in America, it's an area of the country I've never been to, and I think she just does an exceptional job of letting you visualize that scenery. Excellent metaphors, similes, descriptions, just it's a slower book in the sense that it's not like a thriller or anything like that, but it's just something to like sit on the porch and enjoy and be kind of transported to a place where everything's gonna be okay in a way. I don't know, I mean, even for those of us who had shitty childhoods, there's still something about being a child where you have these moments that you're just kind of present and enjoying whatever's happening. You don't yet have all the burden of adulthood and the things that you come to understand about the world. You're just kind of experiencing and learning and growing, and that kind of dynamic is present in this book for like the majority of it, and I just think she does an exceptional job of capturing that sensation and making you feel what Jim feels and what he felt, and it's just really interesting. And if you want to know anything about growing up in like the plain/prairie area of America or on a farm, this is a great book for that. I believe, if I remember right, Willa was actually kind of like from or lived in that area of the country for most of her life, so she kind of had like a first-hand experience to draw on in order to depict these images, and it's just so good. So this is good for you in a different sense than the other books I've selected. This is good for you in the sense that it just makes you feel like you're somewhere else. And I just also like fiction a lot, so I had to add something in. Okay, before I get to the last one, I just wanted to note that this book, Be Calm, was given to me again a long time ago, and it is my next read. I just wanted to share this with you in case I end up really enjoying it. It says Proven Techniques to Stop Anxiety Now. It's written by Jill Weber, a doctor. And yeah, it talks about feelings, behavior, thoughts, and staying on track. So just kind of helping to shape your mental landscape and be more calm. And I think that this will be a nice supplement to the book that I'm currently reading, which is the last book I want to talk about. I'm actually listening to it as an audiobook, and this is the first time I've ever imbibed a book via my ear holes, and I don't love it. I don't know why anyone would choose it over reading a paper book. However, I may kind of be biased because the book is really dense, and sometimes I've been having to hit the back button to re-listen to something that the narrator says like 6 times before I feel like I really get it. I think perhaps if I were to be listening to something more lighthearted, or something that you didn't have to be like mentally engaged every second to really get all of it, it might be a little better, but it's been tough. I've been listening to it in the mornings when I walk Frida, and this wonderful book, this is not how you drum roll, but I'm pretending, is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And you may have heard of this book from another YouTuber. You may, if you're an English major, you may have just heard Eckhart Tolle's name because he's very famous, and especially if you're in a philosophy major, you certainly will have heard of this man. He's German. He's quite Hobbit-like, and he's brilliant. He has a very interesting take on existence, and so far I feel like all of the reading and watching and reflection that I've done in the last 5 years maybe have led me to the point where I can absorb this book. I think I'm at the exact right point in my life to be listening to this, because I've already been through sacred texts, the Bible, understanding the concepts of Christianity, of Judaism, of Buddhism. Like, I've absorbed it all, and I've constantly been on that kind of hunt for peace, mental peace, inner peace. And I think this book might actually be the pinnacle to unlocking that, but it's going to take a lot of work on my part, so as it should. It's not going to be easy, but holy shit, this book is really very interesting. So Eckhart Tolle is like a modern day spiritual teacher. He, in the kind of prologue to this book, essentially, and this is the reason why this book kind of hooked me from the start, and the reason why I'm still pushing myself to get through it, is because he opened by talking about kind of a low place that he had been in, and I just related to that so much. I was like, oh yeah, okay, that's me. Just talking about his really, really kind of darkest days, and through that, he kind of had this grand epiphany and was able to mentally sort of split his mind and his being into two separate entities. And essentially the overall goal is to just exist in the now, outside of time and thought. It's so hard to distill all of this because I'm naturally going to be leaving things out, some of which might be really crucial to, your personal understanding of this, but okay, so right now, close your eyes for a second and just kind of like feel air on your skin. I have a fan blowing, so there's a little bit of a cool breeze in here. Listen for a second and try to really pick out all of the sounds you possibly can. I can hear my computer humming, my air conditioning running, a tiny bit of street traffic outside of the house. And there's just sort of this sensation I get in my ears when I try to listen like that, like just the only way I can think to describe it is like an energy. It's like a fullness, just some sort of space. And he calls this like the silence. He says there's always silence, kind of in between or underneath the sounds. So when I quit talking, there's a silence from my voice, but obviously there are other sounds. But if you hear those sounds, and you listen underneath them, there's a nice silence. You can also open your eyes and experience visually the things around you. Any of your sensory qualities that you can turn on and really pay attention to for a moment. You'll notice that you come into that very moment. You're not anywhere else. It's like the world kind of does this weird zoom thing, and you're like, oh shit, I'm here right now. Like, we spend so much time in our heads being somewhere else that we don't really even know anymore what it feels like to be just here. And that state of presence in the moment is, again, another one of those cliches that just sounds so boring by this point, but I think if you really can get it, and for me so far it only comes in small bursts, I have not been able to like sustain that sensation, but I'm practicing the different things that he talks about in order to hopefully get to a point where I can live that way predominantly. And we tune out a lot of what we feel, the clothes on our skin, unless it's bothering us, just the different sensations. Even like noises, sometimes a noise will be going off for so long that I just don't hear it anymore. I completely block it out. We do that with a lot of things, and instead we live in some other space in our head. And one thing that Eckhart Tolle has said that really has influenced how I've been able to start adapting to this idea is the idea that we can't cope with the future. It's impossible. You cannot cope with the future. We don't know what the future is actually going to be. And even if you roughly knew, you're not going to know down to the very last detail what the future is going to be. So you cannot, it's impossible to cope with the future. But you can cope with this present moment. You can kind of recognize. For example, earlier I got an extreme pain at the base of my left ring finger when I was scrunching my hair, and I kind of started panicking because the pain is sincerely unlike anything I've felt in a long time. It's really genuinely painful, and I started thinking to myself, oh my god, how is this going to affect my career? What's happening? Am I going to get to a point where my fingers feel like this all the time? Did I burst a blood vessel? I was like looking in my skin, and I was just spiraling, as I usually do, into all the what ifs and imagining this moment in the future when I'm, crippled and my hands don't work and I'm, Doctor Strange pre-enlightenment. So I just took a second and was like, okay, I'm trying to cope with the future. What can I do right now? In this moment, I can cope with the pain by taking some Tylenol and icing my hand. And I did those things, and my head cleared a little bit, and I was like, bitch, you're an LMT. You know anatomy. Figure it out. So I started searching my forearm, and I found a couple trigger points that I've been able to work on, and this pain is still there, but before even just going like this would have had me almost in tears, it's getting so much better. So that's the kind of example, a small example of things that I, and I'm sure many of us, do regularly. And we waste so much time and energy, and we wind ourselves up so tight because we're trying to cope with or even just imagine future scenarios, and it's impossible. There's no point to it, and it wastes what's happening right now. So there are all these concepts about like timelessness, and man, it's really complex, but hopefully I've been able to give a little bit of a beginning insight into it, and the book really just helps provide a new perspective on existing and doing so without struggle, well, without any self-made struggle. And it's done in a question and answer format, and he takes into account for all kinds of things like religion, other philosophies, dumb questions that people will likely have over and over again. He kind of gets a little sassy. He's the narrator, actually, and it kind of cracks me up sometimes, the things he says, very bluntly, and he might not even be trying to be funny, but yeah, it's a trip. I personally would recommend buying it in a paper format that you can annotate or dog-ear pages and keep all that information someplace that you can reference it easily. I will likely purchase a copy of this book, but I'm forcing myself to finish the audiobook just to say that I did. in my own head. I'm not going to tell anyone, who cares, but also, in case you didn't know, there are apps. Here are two of them, Hoopla and Libby. Your local library will likely have a membership with one of these, and they just have a bajillion audiobooks that you can download and listen to for free, as long as you have a library card, which is also free. So if you're paying for Audible or anything, stop and find out which app your local library uses, and you can have all these audiobooks right there on your phone for you to listen to for free. So anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed these recommendations. I'm sorry that some of them were a little gendered, but what can you do? I didn't really think about that ahead of time. And if there are any other sorts of book collections that you'd like for me to focus on in the future, please do let me know, and I will read up and discuss some other types of books. So thank you guys so much for watching and listening, and I'll see you in my next video.